Hi, welcome to Trustology. I'm Irene Cook, your host, and today I'm going to talk about a topic that really needed to be talked about a long, long time ago. And I actually have a special guest with me today. Her name is Dawn Hummel, although her screen says Heather. I almost got jumbled there. She's been with me for almost a year, and she's going to help share with us how she helps feed her family. Because today, the show is going to be about family and how we are able to combat feeding our family while we are on a diet. So, as you all know, being on a diet, oh, and welcome, Dawn.
Thank you.
Being on a diet is surely hard enough. And when you're trying to do this on your own, it is overwhelming. You have a lot of things to organize. But now we have the element of keeping your family happy and keeping them fed. Putting food on the table for them can seem completely impossible. But when you're trying to juggle food preferences for yourself and you're trying to learn nutritional elements of keeping yourself healthy, keeping yourself on track, getting yourself fed. That in itself is a task. But now you have the complication of feeding your family, and they might not love all the foods that you present to them. And those of you that are listening, obviously are adults, and we all grew up in a different time period. If you've read my book, Girlfriend's Guide to Weight Loss, I did reference my childhood and growing up in an ethnic home where my mom put together these amazing dishes. Well, when I was a child, of course, I didn't want to sit down and eat these dishes that looked so foreign to me and, of course, to all of my friends. But my brother and I sat down and we did. We ate the fish. We ate whatever she served us. And we ate the most foreign and obscene things and didn't complain about it because that's what was served to us. And this was 40 some years ago at a time where food was not as convenient. You couldn't just throw things in a microwave, let alone an Instapot. You couldn't drive through a quick convenience grocery store and get everything that you need within minutes. So here we are today with the complicated matter of trying to satisfy everyone at the dinner table. And so as a wellness coach, I'm faced with this all the time. How do I do this? And Dawn has struggled with this for basically a year. So I'm gonna let Dawn kind of tell a little bit about her journey over the last year, and if you don't mind sharing a bit about you, your weight loss, your family, and a little bit about the program, and then we'll get into the feeding of the family.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for having me, Irene.
Of course.
So my journey started a year ago, and I had gone through different diet plans. I always had exercise in my life. It's the only thing that was my time and in my time that I could do. And I enjoyed doing. So I never took exercise out at all, but the eating was always a struggle for me. So when I started the program, I was preparing meals for just myself, and I was putting things in the freezer, and I was making my containers, but I was also making separate meals for my family to make them happy.
Mm.
Also too, I wasn't one to start them on this journey or make these meals because, one, I didn't think that they would enjoy them. Two, I didn't feel like I was comfortable enough with making, enough, or knowing I had enough for myself and my family. So I just needed to focus on me at the start of my journey. And as I've gone through, and I've been able to keep off 19 pounds. I hit a 20-pound mark, but I've been,
We're
up
gonna
a
we're
pound,
gonna
down a
get
pound. Yeah.
yeah.
But I'm gonna get there. I have goals, and the fact of the matter is I was able to keep it off. I was never able to gain weight or become in this I don't know, seesaw where I would, lose 2 pounds, gain 2 pounds, lose 2 pounds, gain 2 pounds. And I was able to keep off the weight that I had lost for this past year, and I've been
Mhm,
very happy with it.
mhm,
Uh, I have worked full time. I have 3 children. My husband and I have been married 19 years. So well, we've just been accustomed. My kids are very active. My daughter plays travel soccer. My daughter and my son play travel hockey. So it's a lot during the week that they are at practices, and on the weekends it's games. And so there is a lot of planning that goes into my
mhm,
weeks.
mhm.
And working full time parent. My husband works full time. So it is a very busy life.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
I had done my grocery shopping, and I think it was a Friday night. And I had all my food. Yeah.
Can I just really quick cut you off before you get
Yeah.
into this amazing story that I'm so excited that you're going to share.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind, before you share that story, that actually prompted me to ask you to do this podcast. When you mentioned earlier that you didn't think that your family would like the meals, I just want to kind of reiterate the meals on the plan are all meals that typically a family would like. They're
Correct. Yeah.
such as lasagna dinners and Mexican dishes and that. But could you clarify? Because I actually didn't know this until just last week, and this is after a year of working together. Why your kids you felt they wouldn't like my meals, the Get You Fit meals, because you do like to cook.
Oh,
So
I
could
love to cook.
could you
Yes. Yes.
clarify what types of foods you were cooking prior to?
Before I would cook, you're exactly right. I should have elaborated on that. So
Mhm,
before I started with you, I would cook lasagna, but it would be a meat lasagna with lots of cheese and sauce. They love pasta, so it was, spaghetti with the meat sauce, garlic in there. They like garlic, the bread or the cheese bread with it. Uh, they love grilling. They love burgers. They love,
mhm,
grilling out steak on the grill with blue cheese butter.
mhm,
And uh, my kids are finicky about vegetables. They would eat them when I would fix them. My son doesn't like peas. My daughter everybody likes broccoli. So
mhm,
those were pretty much always, and corn was always a staple in my dinners.
mhm,
They liked chicken, but chicken thighs, boneless, skinless chicken thighs. They like the dark chicken, not so much the chicken breast. So
mhm,
I would cook this chicken and rice with cream of mushroom soup
mhm.
and I'm trying to even think of cheddar cheese soup in it. And they
So
they they
a lot
love
of really quick, rich
correct.
meals that
Yeah.
were easy to throw together. So they were accustomed to the cheesy, creamy, more delicate,
Correct.
yeah. Okay, so go ahead now
Yeah.
and tell your famous story now.
Yeah, they also become accustomed, as every I think kid does, is also fast food, is like
Mhm.
the crave, especially when you don't have a plan and you don't have what your life together, and it's like, okay, we'll just go through McDonald's, or we'll go through Chipotle, or whatever the case may be. So this one particular night, I had all my meals laid out, and it was the turkey zucchini skillet, and I had everything all laid out in front of me on the counter. And I'm in the kitchen, and one of my children comes to me and says, "Hey, mom, what's for dinner?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm figuring that out." And then the second child is like, "Hey, mom, what's for dinner?" I'm like, "I don't know. Figure it out." Then the third child, same thing. What's for dinner?" And it hit me. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at my counter. I'm looking at the zucchini. I'm looking at the turkey. I'm looking at all the ingredients that are to make up the skillet. And I'm like, there's nothing here that my kid is going to kill my kids, and that my
Yeah.
kids are not going to eat. If they don't like the zucchini, they can just pick it out, right? They can move it off to the side. You know,
Right.
there was tomatoes in it. I was like, there's nothing here that who
They
wouldn't
won't
eat
eat.
this,
Yeah.
right? And so
There's
then my
no mother,
husband,
you know this. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah. So then my husband comes in and he's like, "Hey, what's for dinner?" And I had it, and I said, "Everybody, come here." And they were all, my kitchen and my living room are connected, so they were like, "Oh my gosh!" They literally saw that I was very upset, and I said, "That's it." I said, "You're eating whatever I eat. If I am eating something off the plan, you're eating off the plan." And they all like stared at me like, "What's wrong?" Like I was a crazy person. And I said, and I was thinking of my childhood. In my childhood, my parents were avid gardeners. I always had fresh produce of everything. And my mom was an okay cook. She wasn't, I wouldn't say like the best chef or anything, but she had very talented, her mother and my grandmother were awesome cooks, very,
Mhm.
everything from scratch. My mom learned as much as she could for them. And I ate, I had to eat whatever was in front of me. I had to eat it or I didn't eat for that day.
Good.
And my mom made all my lunches. She made breakfast for me in the morning, and whatever my mom made for me, I had to eat.
Sure.
Even as a teenager, she knew I was busy because I was an athlete too. I did swim team, and she would make sure that, hey, prepared meals, and
Yeah.
she knew what I liked and she knew certain things I didn't like. So she would change it up. But I told my family, I said, listen, and I looked at my husband and I'm like, you cannot tell me that your parents didn't make you eat what
Correct.
they ever served you. And he looked at me. I go, we could get your mom on the phone because I know that they were on a much more restrictive budget than my family
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And my husband goes, yes. He goes, my mom would make like a meatloaf and we have to have it last three days
Yeah.
with. He goes, as a teenager and a growing boy, he goes, I could eat the whole meatloaf myself, but
Mm.
mom
Yeah.
said it had to last 3 days.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so so they all looked at me and my husband's like, I will stand by you, whatever you fix we will eat. So I cooked the turkey skillet that
Yeah.
night and
Yeah.
they all were like, mom, this is really good. And my daughter goes, hey mom, my 13-year-old goes, I don't like zucchini. And I said, that's fine. She goes, it's okay if I push it off to the side. I'm like, sure, go right ahead. And of course then my son goes, I'll eat her zucchini. So it didn't go to waste.
Yeah, well,
But
see that is the way that it really should be enforced. It's here, try it. You may like it, and so often we're so easy to um go with the fine, here's this, I'll just make this to satisfy you, without even giving them the credit of trying it. And they may like it. And I know with our conversation we talked about your kids are all athletes. They're all in great shape. They can eat the cheese, they can eat the cream, they can eat the butters. And that's fine. And I know that's not a concern for you. But we also talked about how down the road, there are very few adults that once were athletes that don't end up with poor eating habits. So,
correct.
so it's never too early to start educating and saying, well, you know what, this meal is great, but because it has so much cheese and butter, it's not really good for your heart. So this is why we're having this instead, and we'll have this every once in a while. And I love how you honored your daughter's wish for one of her favorite get you fit meals. So do you mind sharing that story? The one
Oh
with
yeah,
it
the
was one of her.
chicken pot pie soup. The
Yes.
chicken pot pie soup was on the meal, and I had it. I had made, I think, butter noodles that night for them because it was really easy for me to make, and I had the chicken pot pie soup off of the meal plan that was in the crock pot or in the Instapot. And she goes, what's that, mom? And I said, it's soup. And she goes, I go, would you like to try it? She goes, sure. So I gave her a ladle and put it in a bowl, and she was like, ate it up really quick. And she goes, Mom, this is the best soup I've ever had. And I looked at her and she's just eating it up. And then she's like, well, what's in it? And I'm like, do you really want to know what's in it? So I told her what was in it. And she's like, there's coconut milk in here. She's like, I would have thought that this was regular milk or cheese or something to make it, I don't know, more creamy.
Yeah.
And so she asked for that once a week. Ever since I had made it, it's like a once a week like staple.
Yeah.
Another story I didn't tell you yet was last night I made the chicken fried rice with the yum yum sauce,
Mm-hmm.
and I never made it before, so I made it last night. And instead of the chicken breasts, I used the chicken thighs for my family because I
Right.
that's what they like.
And that's fine
And
to
it
do.
was
Yeah.
easier. They were in a hurry, so I
Mhm.
had chicken breasts cut up separately, and I used a wok because I like cooking with a wok.
Mhm.
And I put their chicken thighs in there with the onion and the oh, I can't even think of now what
The ingredients.
the
Yeah.
vegetable, the cauliflower rice in the
Mhm.
wok. Oh, in the wok, I cooked it all up, and I called them for dinner because they were off to hockey practice, and I said it's chicken fried rice, and they're like, oh, great, because they like chicken fried rice from the fast food
Sure.
joint. So they were. And there was peas in there. My son hates peas, and he ate it. And he put some of the peas off to the side, but they're like, this is really good.
Yes.
Even my husband was like, this is awesome. So
Yeah.
I am finding ways to somewhat make them happy, but also where I'm not cooking separate meals at all.
Exactly. Exactly. And you do also have to know your audience. You're not going to pick a meal that is completely, off the beaten path, and that they're not going to eat. But I love how you have approached this, because the biggest point, and I think we need to share this, is how it's changed you and how it's made you a better mom. It has calmed you. It has improved obviously it's improved your weight only by a couple pounds, but can you share what that's done to your demeanor, how it's changed your outlook, you as a person, you as a mom, and how it's changed just your everyday?
It's a weight that's lifted off because it's also looking from the family. I'm not trying to please everybody, and I'm not trying to be that short order cook. I just say, you have to try it. And even my husband, and he's a very picky eater, and he's like, you know what, you're right. I have to try it. You may not like everything, and that's fine, but at least you tried it. And I told my kids, I said, so at least my daughter, who has she has goals, and she really wants to play hockey in college, and wants to be that all around athlete. And I said, you cannot continue to eat the way that we've been eating. You have to fuel your body appropriately. And I'm learning that through my process. And they know you, Irene, and I've talked about you. So I said, in order to make sure that you meet those goals, it's not just about you being an athlete and athleticism and the exercise, it's also how you feel your body. And I'm starting to learn that, and I'm starting to talk to my kids about that. Even my 9-year-old will come to me and say, hey, Mom, can I cook with you now? Because she also wants to, a little bit, she wants to know what's in there, but also she wants to know how, just to watch me,
Yeah.
and just to know how I can, instead of, like I said, instead of the chicken breast, use the chicken thighs.
Exactly.
And I can do that with them.
Mhm.
One meal, they thought they were eating carrots, and it was sweet potatoes. I'm like,
Right.
how do you
Right.
get sweet potatoes and carrots mixed up?
Exactly. And
And
that
my
was
son, my son and my daughter were like, oh, these are really good. And I just roasted I cut them up into the chunks, and I roasted them, and they kind of look like carrots, I guess. But
yeah.
that was something that they've only known sweet potatoes in certain dishes, and
Exactly.
just the word, they're like, I'm not eating it. And I'm
And
like,
that's what I was going to say. A sweet potato, for example, could taste 7 different ways based on how you prepare it. You know what I mean? And so,
Right.
the push of having that open mind, even a pea, to me,
Yeah.
a frozen pea tastes different than a canned pea than a fresh pea. And
Correct.
depending on how it's prepared, there's people that will not eat it if it's canned because it's mushy, but they'll eat a fresh one. So, having them explore that and understand that, well, I'll eat a sweet potato if it's mashed, but I won't eat it if it's, and that's fine because that's just, increasing their food preferences and their food vocabulary.
Yeah, you bring up a good point because I talked to my son and I said, I know you don't like peas, but even in the chicken fried rice, he was still eating them. And he's like, I really can't taste them. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, well, peas can be different. If I just gave you just a little bowl of just peas, you probably like, no, no. And I even think as a
exactly,
baby, he didn't like eating peas, if I remember correctly. But
exactly,
it was mixed in with other things. My husband does not like peas, but he loves it in like chicken fried rice or like beef stew even.
exactly.
So
Because it's
peas in
little,
yeah, you really can't taste that vegetable per se
yeah,
because there's so many different flavors happening when you're in a meal with mixed, with things that are mixed together.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been amazing. On final note, can you give any advice to someone who might be struggling with that first meal of getting their kids started? Any advice?
I would just tell them that you're cooking dinner and you're going to eat whatever I put out in front of you and to at least try it, to have an open mind. I don't ever think I ever done this with my kids because they've always eaten whatever I prepared before. And I was always preparing things with them in mind.
Mhm.
Um, and instead of getting them to explore new foods or new way of eating and new way of thinking, I also will try to refrain from telling them what's in the
Mhm.
dinner
Mhm.
prior to them trying it. Because
Mhm.
if I had said, "Oh, there's coconut milk in this chicken pot pie soup," my daughter would have been like, "Yeah, no, thank you."
Yeah, exactly.
If I told them that there were certain ingredients in the meal, they would their mind would already be made up.
Sure.
So I wouldn't even tell them what's in the meal. I would
Mhm.
just prepare it, saying you're eating whatever I cook for you. This is what's dinner, and and they've eaten everything that I've put in front of them. They
Right.
haven't said, "Oh, this is bad." And my husband told them, like, we will, if anything, we will try it. So he stood by me, which was really helpful that my
Yeah.
husband even said, no, we're going to do this united together.
Mhm.
We are going to tell them that they need to eat what's in front of them, whatever mom cooks, you're going to eat. And also, I haven't run into the situation where they said, well, I don't want to eat that. And what do I do? And I always have in the back of my mind, well, there's cereal in the cabinet. If you want to eat
Mhm.
cereal or you want to go make your own food, go right ahead. And oh,
Yeah.
by the way, cleaning up the kitchen when you're done
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
it. So there's consequences for that, but they haven't. They've always eaten whatever I had scheduled myself to on the meal plan for dinner that day or that week. And I said, oh, we're going to have leftovers. They're fine with leftovers.
Mhm.
So and all else fails. On some of them, especially like the turkey zucchini skillet. I said, if you want to put more Parmesan cheese or any
Yeah.
type of
Well,
cheese you want and cheese it up on your plate, go
and
right
that
ahead.
Yeah, and that was my suggestion. So if you're someone who's listening, like Dawn said, start with small portions. Make a small plate, or if there's something that your family won't eat, keep out the main vegetable that might be bothersome to them, and have them taste a small bit of it, and offer a lot of positive reinforcement like you did with your daughter, letting them select a meal, and making a really big family deal about it, and telling them to put their Parmesan cheese and their cheese on top, so that it can be enjoyable for them, because once they break through and see they can have it, and they enjoy it, then the rest is history, and it's now a non-problem. So I can't thank you enough for not only being a part of the program, but being a role model for now, not only your kids, but a lot of people that will be following in your footsteps. So thank you so much for joining us. And those of you listening, thank you. And hopefully you'll take some of Dawn's advice. Thank you so
you.
much for joining and have a great rest of the day.